Oh, hey everybody, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. You're watching Rebel Roundup. I'm definitely not in studio, but this is Rebel Roundup and it is Wednesday, which means it is our Western Wednesdays with our Buffalo panel. And I'm joined, as always, on Wednesdays by my friend Lise Merle in Regina, Saskatchewan. Lise, how's it going?
Well, hello, my beloved Sheila Gunn Reid. Today, I woke up just delighted to know that Tamara Leach and Chris Barber are making their way home to Saskatchewan. Both of them Saskies, both with no jail time, but still a punishing conditional sentence that's going to see them under house arrest for the next year to year and a half.
Right.
But other than that, it's a pretty great day in Saskatchewan. Pretty great
Yes.
day.
And so far so good. I'm here in British Columbia, in Edgewood, actually, at Universal Ostrich Farms. The sun is shining. There's a wasp trying to sting my phone. So if you see something happening there, that's what's going on. Let everybody know exactly what we're doing because we've got a special guest, someone that I'm really excited to talk to, and will be able to give us a real unique perspective on what went down in a courtroom in Ottawa yesterday. Now, if you want to get involved in the show, you're watching us on YouTube. You can leave us a super chat over there. That's how you have your say. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we'll read it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best to get to it. And it's because we'll never take a penny from Mark Carney or any level of government to do the work that we do. How could we be truly independent if we did? All of our work would feel like a grant application. You can see that in some of the news articles from the mainstream media. If you're watching us on Rumble, same rules apply, but an extra thank you for supporting a great free speech platform that never ever censored Rebel News. Now let's bring on our panelist. Normally we have two panelists, but we don't need a second panelist today because today we have Convoy lawyer Brendan Miller. You know him. He was a star from the Public Order Emergency Commission show trial, as he called it, before we went on air. Now, Brendan, I'm so glad we have you because, you know, I missed a lot of what was happening yesterday. I tried to follow along with Ezra's tweets. Ezra is, of course, a former lawyer, so he has a unique perspective on it too, and he was in the courtroom. But sorry, my phone keeps resetting itself. Bear with me because I'm in the middle of nowhere. You tweeted out yesterday that the Crown in the Right of Ontario prosecuted a mischief trial from the date of arrest, February 17th, 2022, all the way to the date of sentence, October 7th, 2025, for 3 years, 7 months, and 20 days. It likely cost several $millions to carry out this prosecution paid for by Ontario tax dollars. The Crown sought an insane 7 to 8 years in jail, as I commented elsewhere. That position has no basis in law and defied the rule of law. The available range of sentences was between an absolute discharge and 4 to 6 months in jail. The sentencing judge followed the law with respect to sentencing, whereas the Crown tossed their quasi-judicial role into a fire. I appreciate that, but still, 12 months of house arrest for non-violent mischief still seems insane, given the light sentences we see for recidivists out there, like who are doing really actually dangerous, harmful things to Canadian society.
Yeah, and I understand your opinion on that, but as somebody who practices criminal law, a CSO, as this is called, which is
Yeah.
house arrest, they're considered jail since 1996, real jail, and under the test of set out in Prulux. But the fact is that in this grand scheme of things, you'll see that the case law in this area she specifically followed the decision where I was counsel. I was on for Mr. Van Hugenboyce just for the sentencing.
Yes.
I wasn't on for trial. His trial counsel took ill, and I took over for him at the sentencing. And in that case, what I did, most of the decision in Van Hugenboyce, the cases referred to are the ones I provided the court. So I did a expose, I guess you could call it, on the history of sentencing for large mischief blockade type protests, beginning with the first one on the books was the ones in response to the Morgentaler decision, which you probably, there was a large blockade and protest of an abortion clinic in Vancouver and it was blockaded, et cetera. And that's sort of the beginning of the sentencing decisions in that regard. It was dealt with by way of criminal contempt, but that sets the beginning of the area of law in this. And where we're at now is the history of this ends as of yesterday with the decision in sentencing Chris and Tamara. And so there is a long history of sentences passed down for protests that include a form of blockade or mischief. There is probably about 40 decisions in total that I was able to find and provide the court. You'll see that the judge in the Van Hugenboys case referred to a good chunk of them that I provided him. And basically what those cases do is they create what's called a range. In sentencing, one of the biggest principles, it's proportionality, but one of the things that the courts do is they look to parity. And parity means that similar offenders should get similar treatment for similar crimes, okay? And so the law then, based on precedent, because we're a common law country, it sets out, based on these cases, it sets a range, right? So depending on what had been done, you could get an absolute discharge, as was sought by the defense in this case. That's within the range that they have been given. There's cases. But the highest sentence ever handed out was 6 months, and it was in the unreported decision, which was for my now client as well, in the troops blockade situation. Of course, he went down with respect to the firearms offenses, but the court, in a one-page one-off, also sentenced him to 6 months jail with respect to the mischief. So that establishes the range. So you have, and that's the highest one. Mr. Van Hugenboys ended up with 4 months jail. His situation, the court found more aggravating for a set of reasons, not so much from the time of the offense, but after, is what was the situation there. The other individuals in that case were sentenced to CSOs. So same thing, house arrest, same sentence that Chris and Tamara got. So what the judge here looked at, right, was similar offenses, similar offenders, and you'll see that she turned her mind specifically to those decisions, and she went with those decisions. She found that, jail would have been appropriate, but it could be served in the community. And that's the basis of her decision, is she followed the law. That's what the law says.
Well, I suppose at the end of the day, I'm glad she did, because we've seen the Crown just really wanting to have people sentenced for the crimes they wish they had charged them for, but could not. And you have to know that the sentence is, as you say, fair and within the guidelines. When somebody like Paul Champ, the lawyer for the Ottawa Crybabies, says, he tweeted yesterday, "I know many of the people harmed in Ottawa will be upset, but in my opinion, these are sensible and fair sentences." So that it is reasonable when Paul Champ says it's reasonable. And we also heard from Pierre Poilievre on this. He didn't say a lot about the trial as it was happening. I suppose that's his prerogative, and probably smart, as something is still before the court for the next prime minister of the country, to not delve too deep on it. But I think we can all give credit to Tamara and Chris for unseating the previous Conservative Party leader, Mr. Vegetable Lasagna, Aaron O'Toole. Pierre Poilievre posted, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber peacefully protested the imposition of the emergency measures that the federal court found to be unlawful and unconstitutional. Instead of pursuing rapists, drug dealers, and other monsters, the Crown sought lengthy prison sentences. Justice Perkins McVeigh rightly rejected the Crown's request and sent Tamara and Chris home to their families. We must get to a justice system that ensures the security and freedom of all Canadians. I wish Chris and Tamara a peaceful and happy life. I think that's probably the best thing that he could probably say. I'll throw it to Brendan. What do you think about that statement?
Well, it's at the end of the day, and I don't want to get into political state. I'm a lawyer, and
Right.
though I work for some high profile clients and things like that, and some will. Most people don't even know my client list, and they're not entitled to. But
Right.
I can tell you that I work for. I don't take cases on any form of ideological or political leaning. I take cases because people come in and retain me. I believe in the old Barcat rule, which is if you have an issue that I am learned in and you come to me and ask to retain me and are able to do that, I take the case. And at the end of the day, what he's talking about is justice reform, essentially about with respect to dealing with sentencing and bail. I believe that's the big thing right now. You know, there's conflicting evidence on that issue, and it's hard. I get we can trigger a certain awful event happening or any of those sort of things, and you know, blame the justice system for that. But one of the other issues that I saw in this case, and you know, in comparison to now, what we're seeing is these you know, pro-Hamas protests, for example. They're not as long in length or duration, but they are chanting violence at the end of the day. They're calling for the destruction of a people and a nation. And I get you can call that, you know, accuse Israel of genocide is the byline, but I've studied international law, including at The Hague and Leiden, and it doesn't come within that parameter, that sort of a byline. You know, so you're having these things. This is okay, but a bunch of Western Canadians coming to Ottawa and taking issue with the government of the day, basically because it was mismanaged by the police. It was the police who put them where they were. There was no intention. There was no intention originally to park where they did. The police put them there. And they were going to do a staging area. And well, I know this inside and out. And the police put them where they were and created the situation. And then they go, well, it's not the situation we wanted. As far as I'm concerned, there had to be some sort of messing around about why that would be allowed. And they probably thought they would only stay for the very short time period of the weekend. And then they would leave because it was cold, but they didn't. So I don't believe for a second that putting all those individuals where they were put with their trucks, you know, that wasn't purposeful on behalf of the police. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. No police force would have ever done that. And for them to say that there was some charter right to drive their trucks to where they were, that's what the police tried to say in defense at the Public Order Emergency Commission. That's a crock of garbage. I have never heard anything like that, and I have a master's degree in constitutional law. So I don't understand, like it's bananas. They created this situation. The government did. They invited them into downtown Ottawa and put them where they were. And then they didn't like the result. And that's what bothers me most about this specific case is that, you know, you invite them and they put you where they are. And then you don't like, at some point, you get to the point where you don't like it anymore. And then you tell them to leave, right? And that then becomes mischief because they told you to leave and that you've upset people around you. I mean, come on, like the people of Ottawa should not be mad at those in the protest. They should be angry at the government that allowed them to set up where they were and put them where they were. And that's my issue.
Oh, I think
I can't hear her either.
We don't have Sheila Gunn Reid audio. Sheila, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Oh, she's just okay. Sorry, guys. We are painfully live. We like to remind everybody of that as these technical problems happen. But Brendan, where does this leave the Canadian public? Because certainly, I think that there is a prevailing attitude that Canadians have no mechanism to give feedback to the people that they elect, and I think that in the wake of the sentencing yesterday, what people people are upset about is that here you have Chris Barber and Tamara Lich being dragged through the longest mischief trial in Canadian history, and yet the people who violated the constitutional rights of Canadians walk away scot-free. How come people in the government aren't being charged? How come bureaucrats haven't been there runs away Sheila Gunn Reid off camera. How come the bureaucrats that were in charge of making those decisions, whether they belong to law enforcement, whether they belong to government or whatever, how come these people haven't been held to the same standard as Tamara Lich and Chris Barber?
Because government agents and crown agents and ministers, etc., have what's referred to as crown immunity. A lot of the time, in various different types of immunity, there are certain decisions of government that you cannot sue over. And there is case law plethora to that. There's, of course, the ability outside of all that to sue based on breaches of the charter. That has been done, in particular with respect to the freezing of bank accounts. There has been claims brought. I know, because I was asked to look at it, I know that the individual who was trampled by a horse brought a claim. I know that there are some other civil claims that have been brought, but largely to an extent, when the government misbehaves shy of police commissions, and I can tell you, and to be fully fair, and I should only touch on this a little bit because I sit as an adjudicator on the Alberta Law Enforcement Review Board, and I review police discipline, and so I won't speak about that very much. But other outside police discipline and outside criminal conduct, there's very little that civil suits can do to change government, for example, to change their actions. There are, in the Indigenous context, there is at times, because the punitive, not punitive, but the compensation and the rewards that tribunals are willing to dole out for when the Crown acts unreasonably is quite large. But when it comes down to charter infringements with respect to damages, the damages to date that have been doled out are not very large, but at the same time, it's only been since 2010 that the Supreme Court of Canada, in a case called Ward v. the City of Vancouver, recognized that clearly that there was the right to bring claims for charter damages. And that's the thing. And you can only bring claims under the charter against government, right? So that's one of the things is that for so long as the damages are minimal and the access to justice and to litigate those issues is minimal, because it's very expensive to litigate disputes. Those are main reasons why there's a lack of government accountability with respect to government conduct generally. So yeah.
Sure. There's no mechanism to hold government accountable for its bad decisions, or it's very, very hard to. Like the bar is very, very high.
Yes, and it's an access to justice issue, right? Like and when it comes to government accountability generally, it's very expensive for an individual, for example, to take on the feds. It's expensive. They litigate. No different than an insurance company would litigate in defense of a claim. It's highly litigious, and I've done it a lot of times. And it costs people a lot of money. It takes a lot of time, and that's where you are supposed to hold the government to account when they won't hold themselves account politically, as you go to the courts, right? And the court system, with respect to government and holding government to account, as my mentor, who I have a few, I won't say which one, said to me once, he goes, "Brendan, you always have to remember they have the same stamp on their paycheck as the Crown." So, you always have that in the back of your head, is that, you're in front of a judge who's been appointed by the government that you're typically litigating against. And so there is that. At the end of the day, a lot of judges are trying to make decisions on what I don't think so much is about the law. It's about what they believe to be reasonable. And they fill it in. And I can tell you there's studies from professors about that, like Professor Ian Green, who I had the privilege to study under at Osgoode Hall. He'll tell you that he interviewed all the judges in the Court of King's Bench of Alberta as part of a study. And after interviewing all of them about why they made the decisions they did, do you know how many of those judges, and he interviewed them all, said that it was based on the law?
Tell me.
One.
Oh,
Yeah. So like you have to, and they were all talking about,
Really?
and so if you look at and this is public, like that book came out in 1996, I think. And the thing is that judges do what they think is practical. And I've even heard judges say, if the law applied to something doesn't seem practical or seems unfair, you can just sort of change the law because we have a common law system, right? Other than legislation. And one of the things too, the reason for that is in my view, in comparison to England, Australia, and New Zealand, who have similar histories to us with parliamentary systems, Canada post-charter has just kind of left a lot of legislative gaps and left it to the courts so that they don't have to deal with politically hot issues. It is like there's,
yeah.
it's funny.
Abortion is one of them.
Well,
parental
yeah,
rights. Parental rights is another. Yes.
And so they won't go in. They don't want to. And I don't know. I'm not going to get into my stances on any of those.
Sure, you don't have to.
And where the balance is. But here's some easy ones that are not, I think, very
nuclear
hot button issues. So
yeah.
Two cases come to mind. There is, well, three really. One on strip searches. Okay, there's a case called Golden, and the common law set out, how strip searches should be operated in the case called Golden. But it was specifically mentioned in that case, that it was expected that Parliament would look at how this is done. Parliament never revisited it. It's been 24 years. And when a strip search is allowed to be done on an individual by a police officer, it was solely decided by a court as opposed to Parliament. Another one that's I think really interesting is strips with the strip searches. With that one, they also said in Golden that they based the legal test that they made in that case on United Kingdom legislation called PACE. So the court basically adopted UK legislation, all right, on dealing with strip searches because they're like, well, this seems to be compliant with the charter and it's good. Parliament, go do your thing. This is sort of a ruling that'll be in the interim. Parliament just said, no, not dealing with it and left it, right? So, and this happens a lot, with decisions of the court. It's seldom that they do second kicks at the can after a Supreme Court of Canada decision, other than in something where they delay the declarations and things like that, like in Bedford with respect to prostitution or in Carter with respect to assisted dying. Yeah, they revisit the legislation then. And that may be why the Supreme Court started doing these delayed declarations, because the parliament wasn't doing anything. But this happens all the time. The federal parliament and provincial parliaments, to an extent where they're triggered, they leave these issues to the court, and they don't have to. It's crazy to say this, and it's true, but you have more rights at statutes in England than you do in Canada under the charter. It's crazy. So if you're arrested in England, you have a right to have a lawyer present, at your interrogation. In Canada, no, you're not. Though we have, there's no Miranda right, is what it's called. That's been litigated and settled in a case called Sinclair. You wouldn't be allowed in England to do a bunch of things that the police here are allowed to do. It's very interesting what common law countries that don't have a written constitution have created as legislative rights that Canada has not followed suit And it's debatable whether, despite the fact we have a constitutional charter, that we have as much rights as somebody in the United Kingdom or somebody in Australia or somebody in New Zealand.
That's
And those are
crazy.
the comparatives. So, yeah.
It's crazy. I'm so glad you're here to help us navigate this. Now, I saw just some, Twitter lawyers, take that for what you will, saying that Tamara and Chris should have seen jail time because they didn't express any remorse. And Tamara issued a statement. I'll just read it here. She said, Lawrence, that's Greenspan, her lawyer, and I discussed remorse in a meeting at his office prior to our sentencing hearing in July. I told him I would not and could not express remorse as it would be dishonest and disingenuous. To whom shall I apologize? The thousands of Canadians who stopped planning their own lives to take when the convoy started, to the thousands of Canadians who are able to return to their jobs, or should I apologize to all the Canadians who can kiss their dying loved ones or have their families over for Thanksgiving? There is no doubt that some citizens of Ottawa felt afraid, threatened, and terrorized. How could they not, when their mayor and politicians were labeling us as an angry mob coming to overthrow the government before we even left Alberta? Do I feel bad for these people? Of course I do. I wish no ill will upon anyone. However, as Brandon pointed out, it was their own leaders who lied to them and misled them. And I suggest also to you, the police that shoehorned the convoy into a place it probably shouldn't have been. There are citizens in Ottawa genuinely afraid of working class Canadians who had never met a trucker or an oil patch worker. I told Lawrence, that day I'll serve 100 years in prison before I will ever apologize. And before my earbuds went wonky there and then my vehicle picked up the call, it caused a little bit of chaos. I was saying that there's a lot of snobbery through the anti-convoy sentiment. How dare these working class blue collar Canadians come to our fancy bureaucratic city? They are supposed to stay in the West and operate as a colony, and they shouldn't get any ideas in their heads about how we should treat them fairly when we get to sit at home on our laptops and complain and then also make our government salary all the time. But that's just my own soliloquy on the topic. What do you think about the subject of remorse? I think they got a fair sentence, but people are saying they should have been in jail simply on the basis of not showing any remorse.
So remorse takes on a different sort of consideration in sentencing when it comes to acts of a political nature. And again, as I told you, I did the whole expose history on sentencing for these types of offenses. And why that is most of the protests, like there's a range of them. I broke them into groups because a lot of them are from, there's a whole bunch of cases on large protests, right? And there'll be one type of protest and a whole bunch of sentencing decisions on that protest. And what has come out in the wash with all those decisions is a lot of times the individual being sentenced is not remorseful, because they're not remorseful because they showed up to protest something, and though they didn't abide by the law by committing mischief or committing the breach of a court order, thereby committing criminal contempt, or committing what's also known as intimidation, which is, it's funny, it's called intimidation. It's just the history of that section, but it's 423 sub 1 or 2G of the criminal code, which is blocking a road, which is a criminal offense, by the way. They could have, that is a criminal offense, blocking a highway or road. They were charged with that too in this case, but were acquitted. So there's those cases, and the individuals a lot of the time don't show remorse because they stick to their guns that they were protesting against what they were protesting. And so the court typically gives minimal consideration in those cases to the fact that the individual wasn't remorseful, because it's the crime. It's hard to divide the crime between the mischief proper versus legitimate political protest. It's a balance always. And that is why the remorse, lack of saying I'm sorry in this case, is only taken to have little weight, as opposed to somebody who commits a violent crime and kills somebody or what have you, and at the end of the day still says they're not sorry. So that's the difference.
You know what? I think we've come to the halfway point of the show. I'm so sorry about the chaos when all of a sudden Bluetooth failed me from the ostrich farm. Lise, thanks for taking control there. I think we're going to say goodbye to Brandon. We promised that we would only keep him for a half an hour, and I learned a lot in the half an hour that you were here. Brandon, do you want to give people a hint at anything that you're working at, or are you keeping a lid on that for now?
I pop up in cases all over the place.
You sure do.
But I try to stay out of the news where I can. But you guys asked me to come on here and have a chat about this, and I didn't mind doing it. So
well, Brendan,
we appreciate you.
Yeah, you are an exceptional guest, and we very much enjoyed having you on. We hope to have you back again, and thanks so much for all you do.
Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Brendan. Cheers. Let's hit an ad break with a message from our sponsor when we come back, and then let's talk about Alberta, and then maybe we can talk about what's happening at the ostrich farm, which isn't a whole, well, I mean, there's always stuff happening at the ostrich farm. It just seems to happen all at once. It's exhausting. But let's hit an ad break and then we'll come right back.
By providing access to job training and support, Work First Alberta helps job seekers change their story.
Hey, Toronto Rebel News fans, listen up. Rebel News is celebrating 10 years of fearless journalism with our 10th birthday bash, and you're invited to join us. Last week, hundreds of Rebel fans packed our Calgary party for an unforgettable night of music, food, and fun. Now it's Toronto's turn. Join us on Thursday, October 16th at 6 p.m. near Black Creek and Lawrence for a night you will not forget. Expect a lively evening with Rebel News journalists and crew, past and present, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, and of course, a birthday cake.
Happy birthday, Rebel. Happy birthday. Happy 10 years, Rebel. There you go. That's what we're talking about there.
A fun photo booth with keepsakes and a full-on celebration of free speech, independent media, and the community that made it all possible.
Keep doing what you're doing. You guys are doing fantastic.
Keep at it. You guys have made change as far as I can see. Happy birthday, Rebel News. Let's keep going.
Keep up the good work and keep fighting for freedom. Just keep on doing what you're doing.
We'll also be holding a silent auction, including private lunches with yours truly, Ezra and Alexa. This isn't just a party, it's a celebration of what we built together. 10 years of telling the other side of the story and standing up for freedom. Tickets are going fast. Grab yours now at happybirthdayrebel.com before early bird pricing ends at midnight on Friday, October the 3rd. And if you want the ultimate Rebel experience, get a VIP ticket. That includes dinner with Rebel journalists before the party. Space is limited, so secure your spot right now. Hello! We'll see you there, Toronto.
By connecting businesses with qualified candidates, Work First Alberta helps employers change their story.
All right, we're back. A quick message from our friends at the Wellness Company before we keep going, although I'm feeling pretty well here at the ostrich farm. Does your immune system feel compromised ever since COVID? A new study published in the Journal of Clinical Laboratory Analyses suggests you may not be in the clear even if you feel fine. Oh, I just said I felt fine. Researchers analyzed blood from people who had recovered from COVID and found something concerning. Their platelets, which are essential for healthy blood clotting, were not functioning properly even months after recovery. Other studies have found lingering spike proteins in the bloodstream and organs, causing immune system dysfunction, even mitochondrial damage, whether from the virus or mRNA shots. This is why Dr. Peter McCullough developed Ultimate Spike Detox. This doctor-formulated blend includes nattokinase to help break down spike protein, bromelain to support immune health, and turmeric with black pepper to reduce inflammation and repair cells. Take back control of your health today. Head to twc.health/rebel. Use code REBEL to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/rebel and use code REBEL to get 10% off. It is time to own your health. Okay, let's talk about the West, because this is Western Wednesdays, and some of you write me letters and say, don't talk so much about the West. It's literally called Western Wednesdays. We're going to talk about it. Plus, there's so much happening right now in the West, be it at the Ostrichapalooza or in the legislatures, where Alberta's government is proposing a pipeline, basically calling the feds bluff on C5, that nation building projects office garbage, which is literally going to only approve solar panels and battery plants for Stellantis again, as opposed to pipelines. But Danielle Smith yesterday responded to David Eby. Maybe can we show David Eby what he said? And then we'll show the sensible lady to the east of him telling him what's what and reminding him about what actually a confederation means. And look, we can do it his way. If we're not going to be a confederation, that's fine by me. But he's not going to like how it works out for him. So let's hear from David Eby saying, BC is leading with major opportunities to deliver prosperity to all of Canada. Sure. We have billions worth of private sector and First Nations-led projects that are ready to go and will create thousands of jobs. Alberta's fictional bitumen pipeline achieves none of these things. You already have one. It's called Trans Mountain. It just got twinned. That's not fictional. It wasn't built by elves and leprechauns. It's doing its thing. And we will do another. Thank you very much. Or we'll leave. Anyways, let's hear from David Eby. We had him queued up and then I didn't know enough to shut up. So let's watch that.
British Columbia is an unmatched land of possibility. But our province and our country face unprecedented threats. Now, more than ever, British Columbians are coming together with major opportunities that will deliver prosperity for all of Canada. British Columbians are lighting the path ahead, and we're going to deliver a brighter future for our province and our country. Here in this province, we have literally tens of billions of dollars worth of major projects that are ready to go. They are economically sound, private sector and First Nation led, and will create many thousands of good-paying union jobs for families. Through these projects, we will drive the Canadian economy at a time when it's under direct threat and attack by Donald Trump and those who seek to bring his harmful political project here to Canada. The fictional Alberta bitumen pipeline project achieves literally none of these things, doesn't have First Nations consent, makes no financial or economic sense. It has no private proponent, no route, no private funding, and would cost taxpayers billions. The non-existent Alberta pipeline project would put tens of billions of dollars in real BC projects and jobs at risk. On top of that, it threatens one of the world's most precious and intact ecosystems, our beautiful BC coast and Great Bear Rainforest. This region is one of our country's greatest assets and supports thousands of jobs in coastal industries. Salmon alone supports local jobs, communities, and cultures. It's central to both the economy and way of life on the North Coast. The Alberta Fantasy Bitumen Pipeline means putting all of that, the major projects, the economy, the jobs, and our coastline at risk. What the Conservatives in Alberta are pushing is an entirely political creation in the lead up to their election for wedge politics at the expense of British Columbia and Canada's economy. And they're being supported by the BC Conservatives, again, at the expense of British Columbians and our valuable coast. As all Canadians feel the impact of Donald Trump's trade war, let's not give in to those who aim to bring his politics here. We are British Columbians, we are Canadians, and we will choose a better way. As your Premier, I promise you this, I will always stand up for BC jobs, for BC's economy, for Canada's economy, for our country and our province's beautiful and abundant coast. And most importantly, I will always stand up for you.
Okay, so Big D, Big D was having none of that. But you go ahead and react to it.
Well, is it British Columbia's coast or is it the Canadian coastline? Like, I think what we need to get that. He can have it.
We're gonna go.
We'll take northern BC with us because David Eby is speaking to a very, very privileged
sliver
of
BC.
Yes, of unionized BC NDP supporters who lap up his garbage. What is he talking about? Unprecedented threats. What is he talking about? Well, the rest of us are looking south to our American neighbors and friends going, right, how do we fix this relationship that got neglected to a point where it's no longer functional? David Eby is just doubling down saying, we gotta protect BC from big bad Donald Trump, the orange man bad. All he wants to do is fill BC up with more unionized workers. And you want to see an energy project cost 10 times as much? Please, by all means, David Eby, give all of the jobs to unionized workers, please. Like that will fix nothing. But Scott Moe and Danielle Smith are having none of this from BC. And rarely do we see premiers really, really like take on another premier. Typically they try and keep it really polite.
Let's go to Danielle Smith and then we'll go to Scott Moe. Danielle Smith was like, no, quote post on X. She's having none of it. She was in full roast mode, this fantasy bitumen pipeline. By the way, David Eby needs to look at how narrowly he won the last election. That is a province divided. And there's a big blue part of that province right up until the lower mainland that would love to go its way with Alberta, because I feel like those people are very culturally aligned with us, the ranchers, the loggers, the miners. We're here for you. But Danielle Smith says, Premier David Eby's threat yesterday to fight against and block Alberta's most valuable asset from export off of Canada's northwest coast is both un-Canadian and unconstitutional. There is no universe, she says, where Alberta will tolerate being landlocked in our own country by our neighboring province, especially when the same industry he continues to demonize has generated so much wealth for his province and the country. He should get out of Victoria and go up to northeastern British Columbia, where those people are as Albertan as the day is long, and visit some gas plants up there. Pipelines and modern oil tankers are incredibly safe, and the economic and job impact of a new Alberta BC oil pipeline, along with the new production needed to fill it, dwarfs any of Premier Eby's nation building projects, which Alberta has been entirely supportive of. So she's basically saying, we're the big dog. We're going to make more jobs than you, but your cute little thing that you're doing there, fine, we'll support you if you want to do it. Your little thing that you're doing, because it's cute. And then she says, if Canada is going to become a functional country again, the Prime Minister, federal government, and every province must have support of their fellow provinces' initiatives to develop and export their most valuable resources. Yesterday, Prime Minister Mark Carney reiterated this to me. Well, words are something, actions are another. And his commitment to reach an agreement on a pipeline pathways and moving forward from the various destructive Trudeau-era policies by Grey Cup in November. Time's a ticking. Time's a ticking. And we're looking forward to reaching an agreement to do exactly that by that date. Anything less would be unacceptable to the people of Alberta.
Beautiful. Perfect. The time for talk is over. Now is the time to act. Well, there is one way that Danielle Smith could compel David Eby of British Columbia to be a little bit more prudent and responsible with his words, and that would be to turn the pipe off to British Columbia. I mean, it would be within 10 days, of turning off the gas from Alberta to British Columbia, David Eby would be on his knees begging Danielle Smith to turn it back on, because his entire province would grind to a halt. And yet, here we have David Eby standing on his little soapbox in Victoria talking about big bad Alberta and how they're not going to compromise their beautiful coastline. Like, oh, David Eby, I just feel like you're in for it. And
why does he talk about us like we're some barren wasteland? We're beautiful. Like, the prairies are gorgeous. You have the grasslands, from the Cypress Hills to the mountains to the prairies, to where the grasslands crash into the boreal forest. We're beautiful, pristine, and clean. Why does he talk about us like we're a wasteland?
Yes, exactly this. Well, that's BC BC elitism coming through.
Supremacy. BC
People from
supremacy.
BC do not understand. Yeah, BC
Yeah.
supremacy. They do not understand the staggering beauty of the prairies of Alberta, of Saskatchewan, or really east of the mountain range in British Columbia.
Right.
They just do not speak that language. It'd be really, really good for them to tour some of the other provinces to see just how wonderful and spectacular we are.
Right. And yeah, just because we don't wear Arc'teryx and we wear Carhartt does not mean that we don't care about nature. Most of us make our living off the health of nature, you know, farmers. And Scott Moe weighs in. He says the Premier of Alberta is right. The NDP Premier of British Columbia is wrong. And they're just top tier trolling him on X.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, would I have liked to see Scott Moe say this about David Eby regarding crazy gender stuff in school? Yes. I mean,
Right.
But I'll take this too. Scott Moe telling off David Eby just to get his ducks in a row. But this is somewhat unprecedented. It's very rare that we see premiers of provinces facing off against premiers of other provinces. Typically, they like to keep it really cute. Oh, we're working as part of a united Canada. Everybody is on Team Canada. Elbows up, everybody. But here we have a marked deviation from that support. So, Sheila Gunn, Reid, you okay, girlfriend?
Yeah, I just had an on-air coffee delivery. Lyndon walked by and stuffed the coffee in my hand.
Listen, what a good guy. I'm happy to see that you're being taken care of. But no, this is a spectacular meltdown by David Eby. I think he's showing his true colors. And if the BC Conservatives were real smart, they would be up David Eby's back end over these comments. Yeah.
Right, but they're not. Right now they're in the middle of a self-destruct program. And I hate to see it. I just hate to see it, but you know what? Western conservatives have this thing that we do, where if you're not conservative enough, we'll blow it all up. There's a lady driving by in a scooter. This place is crazy. We'll blow it all up and we'll start again. We'd rather do that than sacrifice our principles. Sometimes we'll wander in the wilderness instead of than govern a province without principles at all. And it's a blessing and a curse.
Sheila Gunn Reid, you brought this up sort of in the preamble to the show before we were live, but can we talk about how we are making our political decisions right now? You know, based on, is it good for the kids? Is this going to be,
right.
is this decision that this politician is making, is this good for our kids? Is this going to serve them later?
That's where I am now. I used to be much more libertarian, but now is it good for the kids? If the answer is no, then we're not doing it.
That's right.
We're just not.
And we're not supporting politicians.
Right. I'm your enemy
who undertake initiatives. That's right. That's exactly right. And we need more of this in conservatism. To get the people who are conservative in name only, who are predatory politicians who will jump on a conservative bandwagon only to undo conservative values in the shadows. We are done with those. We are done with those people. So the more people that embrace traditional conservative values, which are family values, by the way, the better it will be for the conservative movement in Canada. And that's a really super easy litmus test. Is what this politician is doing good for the kids?
Is it good for the kids? If the answer is no, we don't want it.
Then goodbye. Then goodbye. Be gone with you. Yes.
And I'm not saying we have to ban it, although I'm on the ban it bandwagon lately, but we definitely don't want to support it. And don't throw your efforts behind people who want to support things in the legislature or in the House of Commons that are bad for the kids. Like, is unrestrained temporary foreign workers good or bad for the kids? If it's bad for the kids, we don't do it. We just don't do it. Is this book good or bad for kids? If it's bad for the kids, we don't want it in the library. That's right. You know, let's go to, we've got one more video from Danielle Smith where she's basically putting the feds on notice on her pipeline proposal. And again, I reiterate, I don't like the idea of government money going to a pipeline at all. But I think it's never going to come to be while we have a Liberal in power. So I don't think the money's going to actually get spent. So it's just an effort in calling the feds bluff on our pipeline proposal. And Bear C5, which is like, look, we're going to build things now. Oh, are you? So you brought in another law to build things instead of just repealing all the other ones that were preventing us from building things? Sure, that's going to work. But anyways, Danielle Smith was on one of the, I don't know, the punditry shows. I think it was CTV with Vashi Capellos. And she basically said to the feds, hey, I told ya. I think this is it. No, this is a CPAC. So this is a press conference yesterday. So I'm confusing my clips. But she was asked about this, and she put the feds on notice that look, you gave me your word, so put up or shut up. So let's watch that.
Premier Eby obviously is really ramping up his criticism of your pipeline proposal, calling it a fantasy. So how are you going to deal with the politics of that, given that you feel so strongly against this idea?
Well, I think Premier Eby's comments are un-Canadian and they're unconstitutional. I think that the Supreme Court has determined that the reason we have a country and have given trade and commerce power and control over ports and interprovincial infrastructure to the federal government is for exactly this reason, so that a parochial premier isn't able to block nation-building projects. So I think that the courts have been pretty clear on that. And I would hope that Prime Minister Mark Carney would realize it's his obligation to make sure that these kinds of projects get built. When you look at the value of bitumen, we believe that this project, if we could build it at 1 million barrels a day, even at today's prices, that would generate $20 billion a year for the Canadian economy, of which the governments take about 40%, and it's about half that goes to the federal government and half that goes to the provincial government. So that is a very high value, long-term return that all it takes is the Prime Minister to say yes. And so I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get to that by mid-November.
Parochial, she said.
Parochial. She's in roast mode. We've got a clip from David Eby responding to the 2 days straight of being roasted by a very important and powerful and productive woman. And it felt pathetic, actually. Let's go to the first one, where he says, it's not the Danielle Smith show. It's the Canadian team. Oh, is it? Then let us build something, because right now you're acting like it's the BC team. Anyways, he's responding to her, just putting him in his place.
Premier Eby, I'm sure you've seen at this point that Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in Ottawa this morning. She described your comments as un-Canadian and unconstitutional. What do you say to the concerns that the Premier has raised about your opposition to a potential pipeline to BC's coast being un-Canadian?
Well, I think the big challenge here, and the challenge that I face as BC Premier, is British Columbia is poised to lead Canada into the new economy that we're all understanding is so crucial to create, one in which we're less dependent on the United States, one in which we're accessing world markets, one in which we're standing on our own 2 feet as a country. British Columbia is advancing more than $40 billion worth of projects, real projects with proponents, with financing that are reaching final investment decision. They're going to employ people, not just in every corner of British Columbia, but employ Canadians from across Canada. And 50,000 people helped to build LNG Canada Phase 1. They came from every corner of this country. And the net benefit of that export project, the largest private sector investment in Canadian history, delivered by our government, the net benefit of that flows to all Canadians and to British Columbians. And so that's our work. And a significant piece of the BC economy, a significant aspect of the social license we have to deliver major projects like that and projects that are coming, is the support of communities up and down our amazing coast here in British Columbia. And so if you want to put that goodwill at risk, if you want to threaten these projects and say, we know that your goodwill and your support is dependent on a tanker ban, that the fishing grounds that you count on, the tourism you count on, the lifestyle that you enjoy as a coastal community member, that it's protected by the tanker ban. If we want to say we're going to get rid of that tanker ban and we're going to go after your way of life, let's at least make sure that the conversation is about a real project. Right now, the province of BC, the Premier of BC, is not a threat to the pipeline project of the Premier of Alberta because there is no pipeline project. There is a public relations department. There is a Crown Corporation with $14 million. The only way currently that project is going forward is with tens of billions of dollars of public money. And if this is in fact another multi-billion-dollar federally funded Alberta project, then where is the multi-billion-dollar federally funded project in British Columbia? That is the question that I'm asking. And what is the opportunity cost of a multi-billion-dollar taxpayer-funded Alberta project compared to what we can deliver here in BC, what we can deliver in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, the Maritimes, Newfoundland, the Territories? You show those premiers the opportunity to spend tens of billions of federal tax dollars, and what can they deliver? Give everybody a fair shot. It's not the Danielle Smith show, it's the Canadian team. And we all deserve the same opportunity for the same federal funding for our projects as she does for hers. That's not un-Canadian, that is fair, and there is nothing more Canadian than fairness. That is a core national value.
Are you done with your tantrum, Mr. Eby? We don't want federal money. We just want them to get out of our way. Like, why does he not understand that? We want bad laws repealed so that we can have, once again, private sector investment. Because right now it is a lot easier, I say it all the time, to pay off the local Christian kidnapping warlord in Nigeria or Algeria to get your energy project done than it is to deal with Mark Carney's insane regulatory regime. We used to have the National Energy Review Board, which was a technical review of the project, and it went through safety, technical stuff. You know, there might be something in there for giving back to the community, maybe Indigenous right of first employment, whatever, on certain projects, but it wasn't this. Ask the local feminist basket weaver how the pipeline or the coal mine makes her feel, which is what we're doing now. And when these major companies look at that, for example, the Bakken oil field, the Bakken shale, it's the southern part of Saskatchewan or North Dakota. Now, these companies have an option. Mark Carney's Canada or North Dakota, guess where they're going? To drill in the same oil field. It is not Canada.
That's exactly right. And for so many of us, we do not, Western Canadians are not asking for multi-billion-dollar taxpayer-funded projects. That is the last thing we want. What we're saying is get rid of your crazy regulations that get in the way of private industry investing in Western Canadian projects. And as for the tanker ban, David Eby, if you people on pristine coastlines you want to maintain your standard of living, then we must keep the tanker ban law in force. Well, it's only Canadian tankers that can't access the coast. American tankers run up and down that coastline all day, going from Alaska to the mainland of the United States of America. So David Eby is saying, you know, tankers are only bad as long as they're carrying Canadian product, because he's got no problem with the American tankers going up and down the coastline. Evidently, they don't harm anybody's standard of living. But
those Chinese shipping container ships that are, and this is industry wide, but those big huge ships that are covered in shipping containers, they use bunker fuel, which is the dirtiest form of fuel there possibly isn't. Look, I don't care about these things, but David Eby won't shut up about it. It leaks. It is absolutely not clean burning. It's particulate. It's sooty, but it is basically it's the last chain on the fuel chain, and they burn it in those ships that are coming all the way from China. So David Eby doesn't actually care about emissions. Like he doesn't. He's not insisting on clean fuel standards for the bunker ships that are coming over from China. He just doesn't like Alberta because we have a strong conservative woman who is interested in making sure that she maximizes the return on investment on the resource that all Albertans own, but she is the fiduciary of it. She has to market it. She has to sell it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, David Eby couldn't be more wrong in this. Good for Scott Moe and Danielle Smith for calling him.
Yeah, and you know what? You know, this is only going to go one way. David Eby, you can let us build a pipeline to the West Coast, or we're going to build it to Cherry Point, Washington, to a refinery there, and they are going to refine your oil and gas and then sell it back to you for an excessive American markup. You could do it either way. It could be a Canadian project, or it could be an American project. And I guess the choice is his. Or it could be a wholly Albertan project, because this kind of stuff fosters Western separation. Because we're like, then why are we even here? What are we doing here? Anyway, let's go into some of the, let's hit ostrich farm news, because obviously I'm at the ostrich farm. This is my second day on the ground here. We're still in ostrich stalemate. Like we're in the middle of a waiting game with the federal court. The farm here is seeking leave to appeal the decision of the CFIA to cull 400 otherwise healthy birds after they were exposed to avian flu approximately 270 days ago. And the CFIA has a stamping out policy, which means exposed to avian flu, you must die. So the ostriches here are under cull order, and 9 million birds have been killed by the CFIA in British Columbia alone for exposure to avian flu. And these birds could hold the key to the cure for the next 9 million and thus save the entire poultry industry the trouble and heartache and financial burden of these constant flock exterminations. But they're not, they're really just hell-bent on their immovable government policy that actually doesn't make any scientific sense. In fact, they aren't even allowing further testing. Like the farmers said, just test them. If they're sick, okay. If they're not, then leave us alone. And so that's what we're waiting to find out, if the court will hear their case. And in the meantime, the CFIA has care and control of the flock, which means that birds are now beginning to die of neglect, because they are not ostrich farmers or exotic livestock veterinarians. They're just CFIA hazmat suit wearers. And this is what's happening now. So these birds were too unsafe to be, used for research, by the way. I should point that out. These are not boots meant for cowboy boots, or birds meant for cowboy boots. They're not birds meant for ostrich burgers and steaks. These are research birds. Their eggs are used for research for, it could be now for avian flu, but largely for COVID-19. And with them, the research dies because we're not supposed to talk about natural immunity anymore. So Ezra was just here a couple of days ago, taking in the sights and sounds of what I've dubbed Ostrich Palooza, a little bit of ostrich Burning Man after dark here. And now one BC leader, Dallas Brody, has raised the issue of the unscientific cull and the psychological terror, by the way, placed on the farmers here in the BC legislature. So let's, Drea clipped this. Let's look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, I traveled to Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood. I met with Katie Pasidney. For nearly a year, she's fought heroically to save her 500 ostriches from a senseless slaughter. The CFIA knows these birds are healthy, yet instead of testing them, they built a kill pen out of hay bales and have barred Katie from even seeing her own animals. Now we've learned that Spirit, one of her birds, has died in CFIA custody after days of suffering. And the Premier hasn't lifted a finger. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Premier is this: why has he abandoned Katie and her ostriches in their time of need?
Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for the question.
I think the member understands, as we do, that avian influenza is a federally regulated disease, and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is the lead on investigating and responding to this virus. This is a deadly virus that continues to come into our province in the fall and has continued on until the spring. Right now, this disease is landing on our doorstep. It is something that is deadly to the poultry industry in this province and right across North America. We are doing our best as a province to find ways to work with farmers, including bringing tables together, because it is now known that this disease crosses over to the dairy sector. And so we are working with farmers to fund projects as we find the best ways to stave off this virus from our poultry businesses as it approaches right now. It is really difficult to hear the stories from this farm, this ostrich farm, and we understand how difficult it is for those farmers. We know that all farmers who face a depopulation order in this province are facing a very difficult time for them and their families and their communities. And we are doing our best to support farmers as we see this disease pressure come into our province right now.
Member supplemental.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you. And I appreciate that answer, Minister. But doing our best? How are you doing your best? I haven't seen any letters written. I haven't seen even a tweet go out. I haven't seen anything being done in support of Katie Pisitny's farm. Has the Premier, have you even visited her and lent an ear to what's going on up there? They have 227 days, virus-free in those birds, and why won't they test? Why not test them and see if they're deadly? You say it's a deadly virus, this is a deadly issue and could kill other animals. Where's the proof of that? Why don't we insist that there be another test done? Mr. Speaker, last spring the Premier tried to pass a bill that would have given him the power to override any law in this province. So he's clearly not afraid to use power when it suits him. But when ordinary British Columbians like Katie Pisitny need him to stand up for their livelihoods, their farms, and even for the humane treatment of animals, he's nowhere to be seen.
Question, member.
With due respect, Mr. Speaker, I hear a lot of latitude given to other members of this House. I have listened to long, rambling preambles to their questions. So, Mr. Speaker, again to the Premier, why won't he use his power to help Katie by demanding that Prime Minister Mark Carney save her beautiful birds from the senseless slaughter?
Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, in fact, did meet with Katie in the spring, and we discussed the situation. I've sat with Katie, just like I've sat with other farmers across the province. One farm in particular in the Fraser Valley has been depopulated 4 times as we try and find our way through to a solution with this disease. But the CFIA leads that file. As a province, we are doing everything we can in our jurisdiction to try and protect our poultry industry. But it's very, very challenging. I understand what the member is saying about how tragic the situation is. We agree. But the CFIA leads this file on responding to the virus, and what we can do as a province is get behind making sure that our poultry industry is protected.
You know, listen to how stupid those excuses are. One farm, she's saying, has been depopulated 4 times. And look, I'm by no means an animal rights activist. Animals are delicious. But I also believe that well cared for animals taste better. So whatever. But when they say one farm has been depopulated 4 times, that leads me to suspect that we probably need to do something about this. And of course, they're catching it from migratory birds, because usually chicken farms are biosecure, right? If 9 million birds have been culled in British Columbia alone, And now, according to these people, and I'm skeptical because it's always a ramping up of how, like now it's your cat is going to get it and your cat's going to have it and it's going to
Yes.
be asymptomatic. So you're like, so not sick at all? Okay. And then they're like, oh, it's going to be transferred to dairy. Okay. Even if your worst case doomsday scenarios are real, that's a reason why you don't get rid of these birds. That's a reason why you keep them, to study them, to research them, to hope that they hold the cure. If now the dairy industry is threatened, what are you going to do now? Kill all the birds and all the cows? Maybe we should just stop at killing the birds.
No, that's the point, Sheila Gunn Reid, is I think this story has become a real flashpoint for Canadians when they're identifying everything wrong with government. So when you have a government that cannot be reasoned with, not for time or not for money, okay? The government will not be told what to do. The government is going to impose itself in your life and do what the government does, while ignoring the scientific leaps and bounds that could be made by making different decisions here. I think it's showing everybody what's wrong with government. And this story, just like the Tamara Lich and Chris Barber sentencing yesterday, is putting a real fine point to Westerners why we need to detach from the federal government. Because if they can come into this ostrich farm where there is a question of how these ostriches can help humanity, there is a possibility that they can actually lick this thing. And we have an uncaring, sort of sanitized government that says, we don't care. We actually don't care. We're just going to come in and kill them all. And that's going to be the solution. Well, that sits pretty bad with Western Canadians. It's just another example of federal overreach and not being able to reason with them whatsoever.
And the NDP ag minister there says, oh, I met with her in the spring. What do you want me to do? It's October, sister. You can't get out of Victoria to get back here. Look, I drove 12 hours and then I took 2 ferries to get here. I'm a concerned journalist and farmer, and somebody cares about civil liberties. I'm not a British Columbian, but I realize the implications of this for the rest of us, including farmers like me. But you're the ag minister. Get your ass over here at least twice a year. This is an international agricultural story happening in your province. Perhaps show your face around here, except she knows she's probably going to be put on blast if she comes here, because this whole like, what do you want me to do? It's the CFIA's problem. No, it's your job to advocate for the farmers of British Columbia. And it doesn't matter their politics. You are the ag minister for everybody. Get over here and listen to these farmers and at least pretend like you're doing something. But she's like, what do you want? I went there in April. What do you want from me? I remember Ralph Klein, who stood with the Farmers for Justice, and that was a federal export issue. Ralph Goodale, I'm so glad you're retired, sort of. And a federal export issue that meant that Western Canadian farmers couldn't export their own wheat. But if you were an Ontario farmer, Quebec farmer, you didn't have to get a special export license to do it. You could just market your wheat however you wanted to. We had to sell it to a central agency, and then they sold it to us because we're stupid. We're stupid farmers out here in the West. We don't know how to do business. How dare we be entrepreneurial like everybody else? And so 4 farmers, actually, Jim Ness being one of them, that Butte, Rick Strankman being another. He went on to be a Wild Rose MLA.
Just gorgeous.
He's
just
phenomenal.
gorgeous.
Rick, if you're watching, we love you. He sold a bushel of wheat to a 4-H club in Montana. I think he charged $1. It was just symbolic, but he wanted to make sure that the transaction was legit to test the law. It was civil disobedience. He knew he was going to jail. And those farmers were cuffed in front of their crying families and kids and taken to jail. Rick Strankman served on the weekends with Jim, his cellmate. The premier was there, standing with the Farmers for Justice. Ralph Klein was. He didn't say, well, this is a federal issue. What do you want me to do? He stood with them. The Reform Party, I think it was at the time, which would go on to give us the Canadian Alliance and then the Conservative Party of Canada, those MPs were there. They were all there standing shoulder to shoulder with those farmers as they fought for freedom and property rights and the right to do what they want with their own livestock. That's the same issue happening here. So I don't take this like, oh, what do you want me to do? It's the CFIA. Who cares? Who cares? Do the right thing. If agriculture is a federal issue, fine, resign. We don't need a provincial agriculture minister. Off you go. We'll just abdicate it all to the federal government. Otherwise, you stand up and do something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, this sends a message to every single egg producer in British Columbia that if they find themselves in the receiving end of an overreaching CFIA, your provincial government is going to be doing nothing to help you. Absolutely useless. David Eby's NDP government is not going to be there to help you advance your cause or even defend yourself against federal overreach. So I think that's becoming real obvious to BC egg producers.
Yeah, you better hope you don't find yourself on the receiving end of club root in your crop, or BSE or scrapie. Let's hope that we don't have a scrapie outbreak in our lamb producers. If you're in British Columbia, ain't nobody coming to help you, because what do you want us to do? It's just the CFIA. Let's get to some Carney stuff because it's the headline, and I want to hit the two things that came out of the meeting yesterday. And if I'm understanding correctly, and I may have missed a lot of it because cell service is very spotty here, and the Starlink only works if I have my Jeep running, that Mark Carney met with Donald Trump and nothing quite came of it, except we're going to keep talking again. Is that basically what happened? Somebody bring me up to speed. I think that's what happened. But from that came a lot of think pieces from people who want to make more out of the meeting where they agree to keep talking. And then I don't think they talk in the interim. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Mark Carney said a couple of weeks ago, oh, I text Trump all the time. Sure you do. Sure you do. But now people have said that, oh, this is fun. A body analysis expert says there's lots of confidence. One body language expert's analysis of Carney's shift in the Trump meetings. Mark Carney, the one body language expert describes it as a tutorial in political communication and composure. This person, this expert, don't hire her if you need like pre-trial coaching or anything. Robin Braley, body language expert and president of Unimark Creative, said in an interview with CTV News, Carney and Trump gave us a really interesting tutorial today in a very different way than most politicians do. Carney called Trump transformative.
Of course he did.
What Carney did was really masterful in that he was very busy, active listening. What is that? Did he nod? What's that?
I mean, did you guys see the part where Trump starts talking about not taking away children and changing their sex in the way
We're going to show that clip. We're going to show it next.
Yes. Okay, watch that body language, Canada, and tell me that Mark Carney wasn't some sort of uncomfortable, because of course he is uncomfortable. But what we have is a Mark Carney who goes to Washington, sits down with Donald Trump, absolutely fangirls. You're a transformative leader, Donald Trump.
Again,
You've done
yeah,
such
after
great
campaigning
things,
against
Donald
him.
Trump.
Yeah.
That's right. And then comes back home to Canada and sidles up to people like Doug Ford, who says big orange man bad. And
David Eby.
But that's right. That's exactly right. But then to watch Donald Trump riff, like I love nothing more than a Donald Trump press conference live where he just like talks off the top of his head. And did he ever give Mark Carney the gears? I'm actually delighted that in his way, Donald Trump gave Mark Carney the playbook for success with working for America. And what Donald Trump told Mark Carney was get rid of the wokeness in Canada. Donald Trump said, we got rid of the wokeness in America and look how well we're doing. Well, Mark Carney just sat in his chair and squirmed. It was an incredible moment. I love every time Mark Carney goes to Washington, D.C. I can't wait to see how it went down. And this is just, we just got to watch it.
Look at his look at his body language. Now, I don't have to be, we'll watch this with the sound on in a second. I don't have to be a body language expert to see that leaning away and then your hands in like a defensive praying mantis posture does not exude
legs crossed.
confidence. Like he looks defensive,
legs crossed,
scared,
yes, closed off, yes,
slightly repulsed. And he's got the weird praying mantis, osteoporotic 80-year-old woman posture that I just find so unappealing as a woman. But, you know, there's somebody out there for everybody. And Mark Carney was able to find that equally praying mantis type woman for him. But just as you're watching this exchange where Trump is given Carney, well, the passive aggressive, what for, on transgenderism, knowing full well that Carney's daughter is now a boy. Look at the posture and then tell me that this exudes confidence. Let's watch.
I think we have great leadership, but we also have great policy. We have strong borders. We have no men and women's sports. We have, I mean, basic things. We're not we're not going to take your child away and change the sex of your child. We're not going to do things like that. What they're doing to the country is so incredible. And they got away with it with all their woke crap, and now it's stopped. And we have a country that's based on common sense and strength and intelligence. I mean, we have the United States of America, and I say it all the time. Other leaders have told me this. Mark hasn't yet, but I think he would. A year ago, we were a dead country, and now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. Maybe Canada. I'll give Canada, but because I do like Canada.
Okay, that is some kind of body language, but that is, you know, Mark Carney, the second Trump sort of started talking about transgenderism in women's sports, it was like all of a sudden he got this like bitter taste in his mouth. He sort of turns
he looks
away,
down,
like instantly.
He
was like, dang.
He starts navel gazing. Just be like, please let it be over quickly. Please don't let him say anything too far off the cuff. And then he does. And the way that his head snaps back when he talks about taking people's children and changing their gender, like Mark Carney, sorry to break it to you, but somebody stole your daughter and changed her
or you
gender.
let them, or you gave them. I'm not sure.
Right.
Which.
When you weren't looking, or you were complicit, because it was the thing to do with your progressive, fancy, elite, dinner party crew. In any case, Mark Carney got a good dose of truth from Donald Trump, who said America went from, a non-functional country to common sense, strength, and intelligence. And this is what we are also looking for in Canada, okay? We are so done with ineffective liberal rule, declaring from on high that they know what's best for us, that they're, just sit down, regular, normal, everyday Canadians, and let the government handle it. Donald Trump is saying, make common sense decisions and you'll do better as a country. Mark Carney can't help but take that home and think on it now. So we'll see what happens.
I'm still thinking about CTV. Finding somebody who would say that exchange right there exuded confidence from Mark Carney, as though we can't see it for ourselves. We got a CTV wanted to somehow polish the turd of that press conference right there from a Canadian perspective. And they found someone to say, don't believe your own eyes. Believe this Orwellian baloney that what you saw there, the flinching, the recoiling, the tense gripping of his hands, like his hands were so tightly clutching each other that his knuckles were white, that exudes confidence and friendliness. There's something wrong with the mainstream media. Something real wrong with them.
That incredible.
Okay. I think my internet is starting to fall apart, but
yep, we know it. I mean, we know it. This is not news to us. Trust Rebel News hated the complicated body language of Mark Carney. Hi.
Yes.
Hi, doll.
Okay.
Is it time for
Am I
Olivia
back?
Chow? Yeah. Is it time for the Daily Cringe? Yeah.
Let's hit the Daily
I
Cringe.
can hear you.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry. Let's hit the Daily Cringe, and then we will breeze through a few chats here. And I just I was able to pre-gaze at some of the chats as we were watching clips, and I just found some friendly rebuttals to some of the chats. So let's go to Olivia Chow, the Daily Cringe, I think Daily Cringer of the Year at this point, doing some cringeworthy stuff. And I am convinced that nobody around her actually likes her. Let's watch this.
Hey, Toronto, we want it all. Hey, Toronto,
Where did she throw
we
that?
want it. Toronto, we want it all.
I cannot see the video at all. I'm sorry, we're having a technical issue. I'm
Okay, I
frozen
saw
over
it.
here. Sorry,
It's
guys.
Olivia
I can't see Olivia Chow or what she's doing.
Okay, I actually saw it. Maybe we'll show it one more time because it's like just like 10 seconds of Olivia Chow, what appears to be on the street, but I'm more worried that it's on a rooftop and she just flung a bat off a roof. But let's watch it again.
Toronto,
You see
we
it now?
want it all.
Oh, I'm convinced. I want it all now too. Did you see it, Lise? Did you see it, Lise?
Favorite people on Daily Cringe. I did not. No.
Oh, dang
I
it.
did not. I could
It's
not
too
see it. We're
bad.
having technical difficulties here.
Shoot.
Too bad.
Yeah.
But
It's
in
Olivia Chow
any case,
she's throwing her support behind the Toronto Blue Jays by one-handing a bat in a certain direction, not even like lining up or anything. She just grabs a bat with the wrong arm, wings it off into the distance and says, "We want it all," in her like little, I don't know, older lady unawareness of just how frail she actually looks. But who lets her post to these?
I can't wait to see Ben Bankus.
That's what I'm like, how long till the Ben Bankus voiceover? We want it all.
Those are the absolute best. Ben Bankus special request line. Call it in. Okay, we need you to do a voiceover on the Olivia Chow baseball video.
Yeah, Ben, please. Because like it's Olivia Chow saying we want it all, and I think it's your home, your children, your safety, and she's doing it. she's getting there. Let's go through some of the chats because we're at an hour and a half, and I am in the I think I've got a cloud now, but I'm in the blazing sun, and I've lost track of Drea at the ostrich farm, which is fine. She's queen of the ostrich farm now. She walks around and everyone's like high-fiving it. She's like the mayor of Ostrichville. Silver Feet, $5, day 8. As of July 1st, 2023, the PSHCP includes a gender affirmation benefit. Excuse me, what?
Pardon?
Employees and their children have access for 80% of certain gender affirming procedures to a lifetime maximum of $75,000. Can you imagine what you could do with $75,000 worth of cosmetic surgery as a late 40s woman?
I would be a whole new person. I mean, you guys would not recognize me. You'd recognize the voice, but I'd be just like completely brand new. $75,000 is an insane amount of money.
Right.
To earmark for gender affirming care.
It's just cosmetic surgery. Now, I want to affirm my gender as a woman, right? With some tweaks and some whatever that thing is where they put the chip clip on the back of your head and make your eyebrows look startled. But I want them to do to me whatever they did to that Democrat politician whose eyebrows kept going, Nancy Pelosi. Her eyebrows kept getting higher up on her head till they almost met her hairline because they weren't taking out the bits in the middle every time they yanked her head up. I would like them to do that to me for the tune of $75,000 so that that's affirming my gender. But that's not what they mean, is it?
Right. No, it's really not, Sheila Gunn Reid. It's only for the precious trans people who are changing their sex. It's elective cosmetic surgery is what it is.
Right.
And thanks, Silver Feet. Now we know that we are all paying for it to the tune of $75,000 per employee. That's
a lot of money.
It's just wild. Like just
that's
wild.
An incredible amount of money.
Never mind the healthcare, like the healthcare services that are then deviated towards these these are monstrous surgeries. You guys just like if you've done any research,
Don't go on
these are
Reddit.
monstrous surgeries, and imagine the healthcare resources that are being squandered on doing these surgeries that are still paid for by the taxpayer. Like it's almost a double insult.
A lifetime of $75,000. Like that's like a full facelift, butt lift, mommy makeover. Like if you took that money and went to Turkey, you would basically just be a whole new person with the same old skeleton at that point, right?
I want
You
that
want it
for
all.
us.
Where do I have to apply? Do I have to get a job in the public sector? No, I'm fine. I like looking like my kids. Sevenfold 777 gives us $5. In other news, cops continue to investigate themselves and find no wrongdoing. So that's a perpetual statement. It's like the government. They're like, wait, actually, I believe the ethics committee is meeting today, and I'll tune into that as I await news here at the ostrich farm. I have to busy up my time, although it's like everything happens all at once here at the ostrich farm. You know, there's nothing. You're sort of having a coffee, hanging out, working on other things, writing news. And then all of a sudden, someone's screaming, a horn's honking over there, and there's police cherries going off. And you're like, ah! Like, you just have to be ready to go at all times. And it's like this constant, like, emotional roller coaster of whatever's happening here at the ostrich farm. But in the meantime, all that is to say, I plan to cover the ethics committee today because they're talking again about conflict of interest, where the ethics commissioner is going to come in and say, like, what do you want me to do? Worry about conflicts of interest. That's what we're at. Yes, that, you know, that like $350,000 a year salary that you have, could you just do something with it? He's going to be like, what do you want us to do? If they don't tell us, what do you want us to do? And I don't investigate, maybe
investigate,
Google,
investigate. Yeah,
Google, just search. Anyways, we got one that's a criticism for you, Lise, and it's not hair or shirt related. So that, you know,
that's nice.
Take the ones where you can get them. This one is from, and you know what? I take this with respect because this is from Jay Peterson. He regularly donates to the show. He gives us $20 and he says, "I'm disappointed, Lise. Stop blaming project costs on union trade persons. Trade unions have set the bar for the wages for skilled trades. Mismanagement for the TMX was the government and what caused the overruns." Now, I will, I'll take that with, I'll take that to heart. And I should tell you that my son is sometimes forced to work in a trade union because we don't have right to work legislation in this country, and he would much prefer to not be shoehorned into a trade union where that trade union may or may not be unaligned with his political beliefs. Now, and we saw during the last election, many of the trade unions came out for the Conservatives because they're the builders, right? They're the, and for me, I take a lot of disdain for the public sector unions, the teachers unions, the healthcare unions, the government, PSAC in particular, the worst, the Fred Hahn, the Fred Hahn types of the world. But I thought I'll just, so that you know where Lise and I are coming from. This is from the Vancouver Sun, so particularly in BC, since we were talking about BC projects and TMX, right? Ballooning costs for some of BC's largest infrastructure projects reignite debate over union requirement. So BC has this thing called the Community Benefits Agreement, which requires workers on certain projects, forces them, regardless if you're a contractor, to join one of 19 unions under the umbrella of the Allied Infrastructure and Related Construction Council. And this has been a real hindrance to getting things done. And the NDP introduced this because it wants to force people into the trade unions, because in British Columbia, unlike in the rest of the country, like Alberta, I think even in Ontario, the trade unions sometimes will go either way, NDP or Conservatives. In Alberta, the trade unions are largely Conservative. But it is to balloon the trade union membership because that money flows directly to the NDP. And actually, it has caused delays in a lot of major construction projects. So they say it's to improve training for construction workers and expand opportunities for women and Indigenous peoples, but it has led to exploding costs and delays for major public projects. And so this has been ongoing since 2018, and now they're having a tough time getting things done. So Chris Atchison, the president of the BC Construction Association, so the opposite of the unions, says the requirements have been a key reason for cost overruns between 350 million and 500 million on major projects like the Pattullo Bridge replacement and the Broadway subway. So that's just from British Columbia alone. And then I thought I would go into like a think tank and also the Pacific Research Institute. And so this is like your, these may even be your Chamber of Commerce conservatives, but costly union-only agreements tend to result in fewer city projects. So when you're not allowing for diversity on the job site, so be it trade unions and then the contractors and then other, like where you allow everybody to work on the site, that seems to be a way to get things done faster and more competitively. They did a big study into America's private sector construction workers and versus the ones that are unionized. And then they compared that to projects that were getting done. And they said, you actually get more stuff done when you don't force unionization in these places. So just so you know, that's where we're coming from on this stuff.
Jay Peterson, thanks so much for your comment. I also have a little bit of experience working in large scale infrastructure projects, so I'm not exactly out to like I have a little bit of knowledge as pertains to this. And what I can tell you is that when trade unions are involved in major projects where time and money is of the essence, a labor dispute can take that project and run it right off the rails. Trade unions also participate in radical left-wing activism. I know this because back in 2023, a crazy Zoom meeting was, this is when parental rights in Canada were ramping right up. And a Zoom meeting was linked with far left activists. And I was shocked, absolutely shocked, I tell you, to see a United Steelworkers union member organizing against parents in Canada. So this is another reason why I have no time for trade union activism as it pertains to major projects in Canada. And I'm also under no obligation to support trade union activism when private industry can get projects done quicker, faster, and cheaper, and not at the expense of the taxpayer. So Jay Peterson, although I very much appreciate your donation, we are going to have to disagree on this. We are going to have to agree to disagree on this. Thanks. Thanks so much, guys.
And I'm not saying like we have different viewpoints. Mine are informed by certain experiences. For example, the extraction side of oil and gas is completely ununionized. Those guys do a great job. They meet their timelines and they make good money without forced unionization. And my problem has always been forced unionization. I don't think we can't claim to be a place of free association and then force people to join a union to make a living. I find that
exactly
abhorrent.
Right. And I hear stories probably on a weekly basis about unionized employees who are just absolutely incensed at the decisions of their unions, their union heads, I should say.
For sure.
And where their unions don't represent the actual tradespeople. So yes, I think there was a place for unions in the far, far past, but that those unions don't have a real place, especially not in what's going to happen to Western Canada.
Yeah, you know what? But my thing, right to work. Give the worker the choice, and then the issue of unions will just sort itself out, won't it? We'll just see. I think that's everything, Olivia. Whisper in my ear, write it there. I think we're all we're like an hour 40 in. Yeah, we're all good. Thanks for bearing with me as early on in the show. It feels like yesterday when my earbuds crapped out and then my Jeep picked up the call and I could hear Lise and Brandon Miller talking in my vehicle. And I'm like, I can't. Thanks for bearing with me while that happened. And then we had just the internet coming in and out. Lise, thanks so much for running the show with Tamara Ugolini yesterday. You're the guest. You and Michael Koros are the guests on the Gunn show tonight. That's 7 Mountain, 9
That's
Eastern. That goes live.
We had a great
It's a banger of a show.
Yes.
Talking about the NDP losing their marbles in Saskatchewan, or did they ever have their marbles? Did they even play marbles? I don't know, but they don't got them in Saskatchewan. Thanks everybody who works behind the scenes to put the show together, and thanks to those of you who donate, even those of you who respectfully disagree with us. We appreciate that this is a place of discussion and the free and liberal exchange of ideas. And there is more than one way to think in this country, and that's all we ever want. And it'll be even more free in the new country. And thanks to those of you who do the very free, but also very valuable thing of engaging with our content, commenting, sharing it with your friends that you think need to see it. That's a valuable service to us because it helps us get around the censorship. And the more you engage with our content, the more the algorithms serve it up to other people. Lise, love you. Talk to you very soon.
Yeah.
And as we always say on this show, if you find us offensive, maybe don't find us at all.